We've been hearing a lot of great things come out of training camp for the Chicago Bulls, but there's still some doubt in some fans and others around the NBA on how well the Chicago Bulls will perform this season. That's why on today's episode, I'm going to talk about how the Chicago Bulls can exceed the expectations that have been set on them this season. Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're here for the first time, welcome in. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. And all the Bulls Nation and Shy Bull Podcast certified members, welcome back. Hey, but if you missed it yesterday, we talked about some of the things that was released on day 3 for the Chicago Bulls when it comes to the training camp. One of the things that we heard from Lonzo Ball is saying that yesterday's practice was the best that he's felt the entire time since the Chicago Bulls have started their training camp. I love to hear those things. Shout out to him. Hope he stay healthy. Hope he gets ready to go. Then the other thing was that Josh Giddey was a full participant in what the Chicago Bulls had going on. They had a 2-hour scrimmage session. And let's say it was a lot of good clips that came out of that. But yeah, that's what came out yesterday. Now let's get into today's topic. How can the Chicago Bulls exceed expectations this season? We know that the expectations all around right now on and what the projected win totals that have been set for the Chicago Bulls is set at 27.5 wins. And that's a bit different from my prediction. I think that the Chicago Bulls will at least get 30 wins on the season. So by my measure, if I'm comparing it to what has been placed out there, that is kind of exceeding the expectations, but it's fair. You know what I'm saying? It's with when you consider what has transpired and what has changed with the young Chicago Bulls, not a lot of people are going to expect this young, youthful, athletic team to have all their things lined up, all their ducks lined up in a row to where they can go on and win 39 games like they won last season. They won 39 games. The thing is set at 27. That's a 12, you know what I'm saying? A 12-game difference from when you had wins to where you are projected to end at. And it's fair. It's fair. When you talk about the change, when you talk about letting DeMar DeRozan go on over there to Sacramento, you think about that because DeMar DeRozan was the most clutch player that you had, and he contributed and accounted for so many wins that the Chicago Bulls shouldn't have won even last season. And then you lose the ultimate wingman or the ultimate Swiss Army knife that you can have on just about any team, and Alex Caruso, a very, very talented guy on both ends of the floor and a defensive specialist. So it's expected that a lot of people are not going to have the Chicago Bulls winning that many games. I don't necessarily have them winning a lot of games this upcoming season, but we shall see. But one thing that I think that the Chicago Bulls need to do so they can exceed expectations, jumping right into it, I think they have to utilize pace efficiently. Now, we know that the Chicago Bulls at the start in training camp, they set a 14-time shot clock. You know what I'm saying? They set the shot clock to 14 seconds to try to emphasize the need to push the pace and move faster. But I want to make it clear, just because you're a fast-paced team doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good team. So there has to be some type of happy medium. We have evidence to support that claim as well. Guess who was the fastest paced team in the NBA last season? The Washington Wizards. What were the Washington Wizards last season? Dumpster juice. And then you look at some of the other teams that were in the top 10 and you say, hey, the Lakers, they came in at number 4. The Spurs came in at number 3. The Hawks was 6. The Milwaukee Bucks were 8. The Detroit Pistons were 9th. And the Utah Jazz were 10th. So just because you make it within that top 10, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good team. So what I mean by saying that there has to be some happy medium, though you have to be good on the offensive side, and it's good to push the pace, but there has to be some type of um accountability on the defensive side when it comes to your defensive rating as well. We're talking about those teams that are listed in the top 10 that performed well this past season. You know what I'm saying? Minus the Indiana Pacers, their offensive rating was so high that they were able to account for the deficiencies that they had on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive rating for the Indiana Pacers was 120. Defensive rating was 117. You look at 5, the OKC Thunder. That was a nice balanced team when it came to what they did on the offensive side. We're having a pace at 118. I mean, not a pace, the offensive rating at 118, and then having a defensive rating at 111. So that type of balance is gonna have to be in between or somewhere within how the Bulls want to play. So yes, I want the Chicago Bulls to play a better style of basketball. Yes, I want them to increase the pace of play, but they have to utilize it in an efficient way, as we just went through the numbers that support the claim. Another thing that I think that the Chicago Bulls need to do is focus on the defensive end. And it has to be by committee. You know what I mean? We got guys who we believe can defend well enough to help the Chicago Bulls not be at the bottom half of defensive teams, but sometimes you just never know. I do know that we have Patrick Williams who can guard multiple positions. We do have a guy who's on the bench, or what we believe will start off on the bench, in Jalen Smith, who's a solid rim protector. We'll see how those things play out over here in Chicago. We believe that Kobe White can step up and improve. We think, that Zach LaVine can at least be competent enough to not just get blown by on every single possession. So the point is that, yeah, we got some guys that we can lean on, IO and P Will, but there are still some guys that we like, bro, you really are going to have to show some effort in this, especially because in your starter lineup, you got 3 not so good defenders in Giddey, Zach, and Vooch. So it's going to have to be somewhere or some type of thing that the Bulls have in place to where they are able to defend teams a lot better. We'll see how that works out for them. Another thing that I believe is going to have to be in place for the Chicago Bulls is that the trio of Kobe White, Josh Giddey, and Zach LaVine has to have it going, and they have to have chemistry. If they want to exceed expectations, they have to build chemistry up fast, and it has to look well. You know what? Giddey was able to do in OKC, but we need a little bit more out of him this season. We know what Kobe White did last year. We're giving you 19 points, and we seen those explosive plays, and we seen him go on streaks from hitting threes from the three-point line. We still need more. Then Zach LaVine, we know what he was able to get to on alongside DeMar DeRozan and become an all-star and make the all-star team twice. But last year, he was injured. He didn't play that well when he was on the basketball court. So guess what? We need more from him as well. So these 3 guys are going to, in my opinion, be the driving force to seeing if the Chicago Bulls can exceed expectations. I believe with that trio, you have your facilitator and your guy that's going to set everything up with the guys that's on the floor with him and Giddey, but then you got to allow Kobe White and Zach LaVine to be explosive scorers. And it's not just all going to be placed at their feet. Let's make that clear. It's not just going to be dependent on those guys, but I believe that every single night we are going to be depending on those 3 guys the most. And then the other guys have to fill in. You know what I mean? The other guys will have to fill in. And my last point, after talking about how the trio must build that chemistry, we have to allow the X factor to shine. Who's the X factor? For me, it's Ayo Dosunmu. Ayo Dosunmu has to shine. So what we seen out of Ayo Dosunmu last year, we need a little bit more to exceed the expectations. You know what I mean? Because Ayo Dosunmu, it's being talked about him, coming out and being more of a vocal leader. He's setting up mini camps for the guys and taking on that leadership role. We know that his game is very, very good and what the Chicago Bulls need. But the thing is how would they utilize it? How would his game mold well with the guys to the point where we can see Ayo Dosunmu take another step up? That's what it's going to have to come down to. There's no more Alex Caruso. I believe Alex Caruso was the X factor and contributed to a lot of the Chicago Bulls wins, to where we was like, ain't no way we were supposed to win that game. Ain't no way we were supposed to still be in this game. You know what I mean? It was a lot of letdowns, but there were some games to where the Chicago Bulls was like, oh, snap, they compete. DeMar DeRozan in the fourth quarter, bring us home. DeMar DeRozan in the fourth quarter, bring us home. So the X factor is going to have to shine. Hey, and just a mention to add on, you got to find your closer. You got to find your closer. Is that Zach LaVine? Is that Kobe White? Who's going to be the closer? Is the responsibility going to be placed just on one guy, or are you going to ride the high hand that night? I mean, you know what I'm saying? That particular night. So we'll see. We'll see. But I just wanted to come in on this Saturday, give y'all something quick to talk about and quick to think about. But I do think that if the Chicago Bulls are, you know what I'm saying, playing solid basketball and doing what they can do, they could very well hit 30, 35 wins. I'm still not going to put a solid number and say I stand firm on it until I see some basketball being played. But I think this right now in a training camp, these are the things that the Chicago Bulls need to be placing an emphasis on. It's that utilizing the pace efficiently. It's that paying attention and being a good team defending, y'all see me stinking it up. But they have to be solid on the defensive side as a team. And then the trio of Kobe White, Zach LaVine, and Josh Giddey, you got to have it going. And the X factor, Ayo Dosunmu, has to shine. And the Chicago Bulls got to find out who's the man for the closer. Last point, head coach out of Atlanta. They asked him about who's going to take those last moment shots. He said, we got to play some games. We got to get some reps, and we got to see whose sack is big enough. So for the Chicago Bulls, who going to walk around with the big cojones and close the game? We shall see. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Leave your thoughts and everything down below. I appreciate you all for tuning in on today's episode. Before you get up out of here, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want to be a part of the mailbag episode, call in, state your name, leave your take. The number to do so is 773-242-9219. Thank y'all so much, Bulls Nation. Make sure you always see red. And y'all already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for the show.
Cognac. Gang.